So good evening, everybody. Good evening, Gowri ma'am. Abigail Adams quotes very clearly, learning is not attained by chance. It must be sought with ardor and attended to with diligence. I hope nobody is here by chance and you are all here by your diligence. On behalf of ITM Business School Chennai, I welcome all the students, industrialists, faculties and well-wishers to the webinar on Emotional Intelligence During Adversity by Ms. Gowri Balasubramanyam, Global Head L&D, Learning and Development, Hinduja Tech. ITM Business School Chennai is part of ITM group of institutions founded in 1991 by Dr. P.V. Ramana. ITM Business School and our flagship ITM PGDM program are approved by the ICTE. Ministry of HRD, ITM Business School Chennai is ranked 23rd among the top business schools in India. The agenda of today's webinar will be introducing the speaker, then the speaker will be presenting for 30 to 40 minutes, followed by Q&A session for 20 minutes. I kindly request all the participants to raise your queries through the chat window along with an email. The speaker of the day, Ms. Gowri Balasubramanyam, will answer all the questions during the Q&A session. But if anything remains unanswered, we will email you within 2 days. Request all the participants to remain in mute for the entire session and also kindly send your feedback through the chat window. Today we have among our midst Ms. Gowri Balasubramanyam, Global Head Learning and Development, Hinduja Tech. She is a seasoned learning professional, a certified behavioral and talent analyst, a professional certified coach, EQ 330 certified, and a master practitioner of NLP. She is successful in designing and deploying large-scale global learning interventions, spearheading new initiatives, and designing and executing leadership development programs. She is a passionate organizational development professional with hands-on experience in HIPPO identification and development, succession planning, competency mapping, performance management, assessment development centers, coaching, psychometric assessment. She is a self-driven person with a passion to keep herself updated in the latest field of learning and development, and action-driven talent development leader. On behalf of ITM Business School Chennai, we welcome you, ma'am. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Now over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ajita. Thank you so much. Very good evening to all of you. Thanks, Gulshan sir, for this opportunity. A real pleasure to be associated with ITM. So when we were thinking of a topic for this particular seminar, when I was discussing with Indu, one more faculty of ITM who takes care of the corporate relationships, we thought that this emotional intelligence during adversity would be a right topic. Because even at corporate today, one of the most difficult roles from HR perspective, right, and even from the organization leadership perspective, is to see how we can keep our people engaged, right? Especially because most of them are going through a lot of stress, working from remote locations, the challenges that they have to face because of the COVID-19 situation. So we felt probably through this webinar, we could give in some tips in terms of, okay, how do we manage the situation? And today we have reached a stage where we've all agreed that this particular thing is to stay for some more time, at least with us, right? And what we have to look at is how do we make ourselves strong? How do we make ourselves resilient? And how do we handle ourselves effectively and keep marching ahead? As Dr. Ajita said, we will have a question and answer session at the end. Or if we cannot answer all the questions, we'll definitely take it offline, right? What I would request all of you to do is, 1 minute. Okay, please go to a website called menti.com, MENTI.com. Can you please log into that? On your mobiles, please, menti.com. Okay, I'm sharing something. MENTI. Okay. Now you will see a question that's coming up, and on the top you can see a code. When you enter the website, please use the code 602551. And I would like all of you to answer this question, please. What, according to you, is emotional intelligence? Today, this has become a byword. Everyone talks about emotional intelligence. So quickly type in your answers and submit. Okay, the inner strength, staying calm and collected, facing emotions, okay, controlling the mind, awareness, okay, brilliant. Balance of emotions, yeah, that's one good one. Subconscious mind, okay. Okay, staying calm, controlling the mind. That's interesting. I think we are about 38 to 40 people in the call. At 3 responses, we should be getting a few more. Can we quickly respond? Beginning of maturity, that's awesome. That's a nice one. Balance of attitude. Okay. A balanced state. So being emotionally intelligent as being in a balanced state. That's nice. Just 1 minute more, 30 seconds more, and we stop. Routine. Understanding situations. Exactly. To stay calm and happy. Absolutely. That is what is the end state for most of us. Contract. Okay. I'm not sure I understand that much. But yes. Awareness, contract, seminar, subconscious mind, facing emotions. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you all. Thank you so much. So this is where we're going to start with. And what I'm going to talk about is going to be a combination of all that you have mentioned, right? It's not that we don't understand emotional intelligence today. Most of us are aware. My attempt is going to be to link emotional intelligence, the concept, with the present situation, the adversity that we are facing, and how it's going to affect us. Thank you all. Thank you so much. And I'm going back to the presentation. Okay. So this is what we discussed in terms of what is emotional intelligence. We saw the various answers that all of you gave. So it's good to start from a point where we all are clear about our understanding of this topic. So the next step is going to be looking at why do we need emotional intelligence? Most of you mentioned that, right? In terms of being balanced, being calm and happy and all of that. This is exactly why we need emotional intelligence, because it increases the leadership ability of an individual. From a corporate perspective, it supports in team performance because I know how to work with my colleagues. It improves decision making. So there's a decreased occupational stress. The stress level comes down because I understand how to work with people. Reduce staff turnover, a very critical thing. Today in organizations, managers' performance, one of the parameters for evaluating a manager's performance is by the attrition rate in his team, right? So how well does a manager understand his team? Increased personal well-being. How comfortable am I with myself is why we do this. And this is a little statistics for those of you who love numbers, believe in data and analytics and all of that. I would like you to look at this one point there, which says that emotional intelligence is 2 times both your intelligent quotient and your technical skills put together, right? Your technical skills and your IQ can get you into a job, but what helps you sustain that job and grow in the job is emotional intelligence. How well do you understand the people? How are you able to work with your stakeholders, your customers, is what becomes very important. And look at the point 3 there. higher the position in an organization, higher is the amount of emotional intelligence required. 85% of the skill set that is required at higher levels is EI, because at a CEO level, at a CTO level, at a CFO level, they will not be sitting and looking at basic Excel sheets and all of that. It's more about how do they take decisions? How is it that they show resilience? How do they show their executive presence? And all of these come with emotional intelligence. Okay, so this is some data. So then we get into a little understanding, because we're talking emotions, right? And we all understand that emotions are in the brain. So let's understand the brain quickly. Just a small point. There are three, we call it as a triune brain, right? If you look at the lowermost part of the brain, which is where your neck joins the skull, right? That part of it is called, is the basic part of it. This is called as a reptilian brain. And this is where your fight and flight response comes from. So we should understand that for animals initially, the only thing that the brain supported them was in preserving them, right? Saving them from being attacked, helping them to escape when required, and fight when required. So fight and flight is the most basic response of the brain, and that is why it's right there at the bottom. So the survival state, am I safe, is all that it thinks. So that is called the reptilian brain. Then you come to the mammalian brain, which is where you have the limbic system. Limbic system is the seat of all your emotions, right? And then you have got the executive brain. And this is where what we call as the neocortex in the terms of biology. Neo means new. So this is a new part of the brain that has been developed in human beings. And the exact position of your prefrontal cortex, where your decision making, problem solving, and all these happen, is the forehead part of it. The forehead is what we call as the prefrontal lobe, right? So a quick recap: the lizard brain, the mammalian brain, and the neocortex. So today we will be talking about mainly the mammalian brain from an emotion perspective, and the neocortex in terms of the decision-making skills, especially considering that we are talking about how do I develop a resilience, how do I manage in adversity. And it was Daniel Goleman who actually popularized the concept of emotional intelligence in the current state that it is in. And this is what he says. What is emotional intelligence? Your emotional abilities aren't in hand. If you don't have self-awareness, right? If you're not able to manage your distressing emotions. So these are about yourself, right? Understanding yourself, managing yourselves. If you can't have empathy, empathy is about how do you look at the people that you interact with and have effective relationships, right? What is the kind of relationship that you maintain with the people around you? It can be at home, it can be in the society that you're living in, it can be in the organization that you're working for. It's always about human relationship, right? So how do you maintain these relationships? How effective are you in that? So Daniel Goleman says that irrespective of the smartness that you have, the IQ that you have, right? You will not go very fast, right? And this, I would like you to recall the first statement that we made, where we said that EQ is 2 times both your IQ and your technical skills put together, right? So if I want to go far in my career, if I want to go far in my relationships with people, then I need to be able to understand people. First, I need to be able to understand myself, understand the people that I'm working with. And that is what is going to help me move ahead, right? So now we are going to be looking at the domains of emotional intelligence. So these are the factors that we already saw, right? In the definition that Daniel Goleman gave about emotional intelligence, we saw about awareness of self, we saw about managing self, then we saw awareness about others and management about others. management of others, right? So the first part is self-awareness. How well do I understand myself? Do I know what are my capabilities, my areas of development? What is it that makes me happy? What is it that makes me sad? What irritates me, right? What angers me? What pleases me? So all these things, how much are we aware about ourselves? What are those triggers? Which are those red flag words, right? That is about self-awareness. And then the next part, now that I'm aware of myself, I know that this particular situation is going to irritate me and I'm going to get angry. With the awareness that I have about myself, will I be able to manage myself? Is what we are looking at in self-management. Okay? Then, how well do I know people? How well is my social awareness? And that is where we used a very strong word called empathy. Am I able to understand the challenges of people around me? Do I know what, just as I know about myself, what makes me angry, happy, and all of that? Do I know what emotions are created in people around me? When do they get angry? What makes them happy, right? What are their expectations? How well do I know the people around me is about social awareness. And then when I know about the people, how do I manage my relationship, right? So this is what emotional intelligence is all about. And for today's discussion, we will be looking at mainly the first two quadrants, which is self-awareness and self-management. If I'm able to manage these two right, automatically the other two gets managed, right? My self-awareness will help me understand people also around me. It will also help me manage relationships. And when I am in control of myself, somebody had written that emotional intelligence is about being balanced, being able to control your emotions, right? And that is what we are talking about. So if we take care of the first two, the second two usually happens automatically. One song, I don't know how many of, I'm sure most of us would have heard this as children or as part of our growing up. There is this very beautiful nursery rhyme, right? When you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. So suddenly, when I was looking at that song from an emotional intelligence perspective, I felt that is the song for emotional intelligence, right? When I'm happy and when you're happy and you know it. So the first thing is about having that particular emotion, right? And knowing it. Do you acknowledge, do you recognize that you have that emotion? And what next? When you're happy and you know it and you really want to show it, clap your hands, right? So it's about expressing those emotions. So that is what we're talking about when we say emotional intelligence. Am I aware of myself, my emotions, right? And do I know how to express them? In psychology, we clearly say, in behavioral sciences, we clearly say there's nothing right or wrong about any emotion. There's nothing right or wrong about any behavior. Everything is contextual, right? Just to give you an example, being happy, being joyful, enjoying life, right? It's a very positive thing, right? If I were to ask you, is it a good behavior or a bad behavior? You would all say, yes, it's good. But if I were to go and make fun and be happy at a funeral, right? So it's not about the behavior being right or wrong. It's about the context. So am I able to recognize those emotions in me? And can I be intelligent enough to know how to express it, when to express it, where to express it, right? That is what becomes your self-management, right? We have already discussed this. We'll just quickly go through it because I would like to spend a little more time in the adversity part of it. So we have already discussed this. It's about understanding your motivations, your behaviors, right? That is self-awareness. A SWOT analysis that some of us do, right? If we just do the strength and weakness, understanding what is my strength, what is my area of development, it becomes, it's a activity of self-awareness, right? I keep telling some of the people, right, when I do this EQ coaching and reports, when I see the reports of some of the leaders, they are so much out of touch with their own emotions, right? So they're so busy with the world outside that they don't even recognize what is happening inside of them. So we tell them, can you just stop 2 or 3 times during the day? Just close your eyes for a minute and say, what am I feeling now? It can just be things like, I'm bored, I'm happy, I'm excited, I'm worried, I'm skeptical, right? I'm really frightened. It can be any of those, but can you stop for a minute, look within and think of what is that emotion that you're going through, right? Self-management, it's about your emotions so you can be flexible. Remember what I said, it's about the context, the situation. So can you regulate your emotions? Nowhere do we talk about controlling your emotions, friends. You must just listen to the words that I've been using. I've never used the word controlling your emotions. We're always talking about how do you regulate it? How do you express it the right way, right? That is what we are looking at. Right? And then social awareness, empathy. Empathy beautifully defined as getting into the shoes of the other person, right? One point that we need to understand is that if I have to get into the shoes of the other person, the first step that I have to do is to get out of my shoes. I can't stay in my shoes, right? And say, yeah, I understand how you're playing, how you're feeling. I have to get out of my ideas, my point of view, my judgment, hold it for some time, be open to listen to the other person, get their viewpoints, and then decide, right? Empathy is the most critical skill set as we go up the leadership ladder, right? Being able to understand people, what would be the impact of the action that a leader takes on his people becomes extremely important. Empathy is a very, very critical skill set. There is a very nice book by Stephen R. Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that, he brings this beautiful concept where he says, seek first to understand and then to be understood, right? Most of the time, just think of the cribbing that we do. My friend doesn't understand me. My parents don't understand me. My spouse doesn't understand me. My team doesn't understand me. Nobody seems to understand me, right? It's a crib that most of us would have used at some point or the other. Would you just wait for a second when you get such thoughts and think of how much do I understand the other person, right? The golden rule, friends, is to treat others. This is what we heard as a quote from the time we were in school. This is attributed to Gandhiji, where he said, do unto others what you would want them to do to you. But today we have gone beyond that golden rule. We have a platinum rule, and the rule is treat others like the way they want to be treated, right? And how will I treat them the way they want to be treated? Only when I understand them. And that's where social awareness becomes important. And when I'm aware about what is it that drives a person, what is it that motivates a person, what is it that angers a person I'm dealing with, I'll be a lot more careful about my interactions. And that is why we said, right, the 4 quadrants. I start with being aware of myself. Then once I'm aware, I check what are the areas I'll have to focus on and manage it effectively. And then I look at how much do I understand the people around me. And then it goes to managing relationships. So these are the 4 important concepts of emotional intelligence. Right? Adversity and EI. What is adversity? Right? I'm sure all of us would have faced some kind of adversity or the other. Some would have gone to very great heights of adversity, right? And some of us, by God's grace, have been spared, and we have smaller events to think about, right? It's an unfavorable, unfortunate event, circumstance, or calamity. So considering that all of us, and this is what Albert Einstein says, and exactly why we link this directly to emotional, your self-awareness part of it, right? It introduces a man to himself. Is because when you are in stressful situation, when you are in unfavorable situation, when you are out of your comfort zone, you are in your natural self. And that tells you, oh my God, this is who I am. People around you think, oh my God, I thought this person was Mr. Cool, but just one small challenge in life, and look at the way he's completely broken down. Look at the level of, depression that he has gone into, right? I thought he was very composed and complacent, but look at the way he's so super excited about such a small thing. So any adverse situation, right, which can be a simple thing like an escalation in an office, or somebody giving you a very strong feedback, somebody blaming you for something, or it could be bigger ones like a setback in your career, a setback in the in a business that you are in, or it can be some calamity. Just think of all the different adverse situations that people have gotten into. We can't even fathom the level of challenges that some people have to go through because of this COVID thing. We've read horror stories of a guy carrying his father on a cycle for 1,200 kilometers, right? And what is it that gets these people to achieve what they do? What is it that drives people to achieve? Right? It's not a small task, 1,200 kilometers in peak summer, father on a cycle from one state to the other state. What is it that makes these people achieve what they do? Right? Is what we're going to look at. And this is the point there, right? So in an adverse situation, invariably there's stress, right? Because we are not prepared for it. We have no idea what's going to happen. There's a lot of unknown, right? There is ambiguity in the situation. There is confusion. There is no clarity. And all of this leads to stress, right? And what happens next depends on how we are responding to the situation. I have two options. I can just react impulsively, right? I'm not able to do anything. I'm not able to go out of home. My business is not working. So I get highly irritable. I get very angry. I start screaming at the drop of a hat, right? So then what happens is this leads to distress. Pressure increases. It keeps adding, right? It keeps feeding itself. The more irritated you get, the more it keeps adding fuel to it. And then what happens is it could affect your health, it could affect your relationship, it could affect your career. That is one of the reasons why, if you look at any HR forums, any discussions anywhere that's happening, all of us are talking about how are you keeping your employees engaged. Today we have gone beyond just employees. We look at, okay, how was the family reacting to the whole thing? There was a very nice discussion that happened in a group on a lighter vein, where a few of our L&D folks, we were talking about, okay, what could be the different training options that we could have, right? What else could we do for our people from learning perspective? And there is this very senior L&D professional who comes and says, guys, can you let the employees be, right? They're already, the stress of being with the family 24/7 is already getting into them, right? So don't add to the stress, was what he said. I was talking to a colleague and I was like, You must be excited, right? Getting to spend so much of time with your child. She has a 3-year-old kid. She says, no, I'm more stressed out now because I'm trying to balance both. I could completely, separate my professional and personal life before, but working from home, the margin seems to have disappeared. I don't know where my personal ends and where the professional begins. Some of us are putting in 12 hours to 14 hours per day. So all this is adding to stress, right? So if I don't want to get into the situation where my health gets upset, the relationships goes for a toss, right? And it affects my career because suddenly my team sees me as a different person. I'm not able to work the way I normally do. My productivity goes for a toss. I'm under high stress. And adding to all of this, of course, we know that there are so many job cuts happening. There's so much of attrition and retrenchment. So all this is adding to the stress, both from an organization perspective, because they have to take some hard decisions, and from an individual's perspective, right? But getting worked up, being impulsive does not solve the situation. So what do I do instead? I respond to it. I become resilient, right? What is resilience? Being able to get out strongly from situations is what brings in the resilience in individuals. So can I respond to the situation? And when I respond, what happens is I get under eustress. So there are two kinds of stress: the distress, which is negative, right? And eustress, which is a positive stress. It is good for us to have some stress, right? As trainers, most of us feel this, right? Just before we go for a presentation, there is some kind of a stress that we go through. And this is not distress, it's eustress, because this is something, the stress is because of the desire to do a good job, the desire to reach out to the participants, right? The desire to be able to meet the objectives. So this kind of positive stress is extremely good, because that is what creates a challenge, and that is what gets you to do what you have to do in life. So the choice is there for us, right? How do I react to adversity is going to decide the path I'm going to take. And that is going to decide on the end result that's going to happen, right? When I get into a reaction, it's more of a fixed mindset happens where I'm not able to think beyond. And if I'm able to respond positively, then I'm able to think beyond, right? And this sort of creates a growth mindset in individuals. And this is what Zig Ziglar says: adversity is what you need to face in order to become successful, right? These are challenges. And when do we become successful? It depends on the path that we decide to take. What is it? How am I going to, do I react impulsively or do I respond? Do I end up in distress or do I get into eustress, which is going to help me thrive in adversity, right? So most of the stories, if you hear any stories, except for a few of them, but still they would have also faced some adverse situations. But most of the people, the ones who have made it really big in the world today, have had to face some serious adversity or the other, and they've come out through it in flying colors, and they've become successful. It was because of the way they looked at the adverse situation. They took it up as a challenge. They looked at it as a positive thing. They looked up to it as something that's a stepping stone to the next level. And that is how they've ended up where they are. I think somebody is using annotate. Can we disable annotate, please?
Ma'am, nobody is actually using it. Annotate.
No, but yeah, I think this is, yeah, I cleaned it up. Thank you. Okay. Right, so next we go to the And now we are going to look at the skills that is required during adversity, right? We spoke about one very important thought process, which is responding to deciding to make the right choice in terms of how I'm going to look at it, right? What is going to be my approach to adversity? Let's look at the different skills. First one is belief in one's capabilities. And I would like you to remember that the most important point is the self-awareness. So we are coming in from there. Dr. Ajita?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know, man, somebody, all of this.
The host rate is with me. I don't think somebody could do that.
I don't know how.
I didn't use it.
Yeah. Let's look
I'm
at.
trying to take it off. Let me see. You have stopped sharing your screen?
Is it? Okay, let's see if we'll just go ahead anyways. Is the screen clear in spite of all of that?
Ma'am, you have to share your screen once more. There is
I'll
no.
share.
Yeah.
Okay, so a quick thing. We look at one more question. We'll just so that we were just talking about the fact that most of us would have gone through some kind of adversity or the other. So let's take a quick minute to look at what was and the different adversities that we have faced, right? And then we'll get into the skills that are required. Okay, so now I'm going to open the next question. The same thing, would request you all to go to menti.com quickly. I'm presenting it. Okay, so I hope all of you can see the question here. Name the adverse situations you have been in. Quickly, because now if you can think of the different situations, we can look at what are the skills, and you will be able to brilliantly look at, okay, fine, did I use that skill in that situation? So quickly, your answers. I don't know who's using annotate. Health, business loss, yeah, money. Okay, I've disabled participants annotation. My God, being ostracized, okay, yes. And coming out of such situations really requires a lot of resilience and determination. Salary cut, yeah, job loss, health. Dr. Ajita, how much time do I have?
Ma'am, we are now the timers. Somewhere we have around 15 minutes, ma'am.
Okay, so in another 10 minutes, I think I'll get this done. Would it be okay?
Okay, ma'am.
I've not been able to see the questions on chat. So let me know if there are any questions.
Gulshan sir has asked a question.
Managing home and work, okay. Yeah, it's a regular adverse situation, right? Being able to balance. Quickly, team, in another 1 minute, we'll end the poll. "54 participants and only 7 adverse situations. And by the way, it does not repeat a point. If the point is already there, it will not be repeated. Okay, last 30 seconds. Okay, let's go back. Okay, that's nice. Okay, looks like these are the major issues, and looks like most of us have faced similar situations, right? Money, business loss, health issues, salary cut, jobs, right? Health, either of our own selves or our families, our near and dear ones, all these are adverse situations and put us under a lot of stress. Okay, so I'm stopping this and I'm going to go back to the presentation. Right? So this is what we are talking about. The self-confidence, that is very important, the determination that yes, I can do it. And the second point is about being self-directed. Can I take an initiative? Can I take ownership for the action that has to be done, right? Or do I sit back and blame the entire situation around me? Or do I say, come on, I know this is not the right situation. It is a challenge for me. I'll pick it up and move ahead, right? So that's being self-directed. Okay, handling rejection, right? Adverse situations, we saw a very serious thing, right? Like being completely thrown out of a community, out of a family, out of a group of friends. This, especially in children, right? Not being spoken to, being completely ignored and all those things, right? Rejection, it becomes a very serious challenge for them. And some of us have it even at a very late stage, where being not spoken to, right? Being ignored completely can add a lot of stress to the individual, right? Where a lot of negative feedback has been given to the individual. He's been, or he or she has been rebuffed in terms of the suggestions that was provided or work that was done. So being rejected becomes a very, very serious, what should I say? It becomes a very high emotional situation for certain people. And most of the suicides that you see that's happening is because of this thing, because they're not able to handle rejection, right? I didn't get the admission to a college that I wanted. I've been rejected by the college. Okay, fine, I go and commit suicide. My girlfriend or boyfriend that I'm interested in is not interested in me. Brilliant, I go and commit suicide. The job, I lost my job. So again, it's a rejection because I was sent out of the company rejected me. So again, I decide to do something serious with my life. So all these, right, become very important for us to be aware of. What is it that is driving us to that situation? Why is it that I'm not able to take a rejection strongly? And this, I tell you, for those of us who have kids, right, young ones, it becomes a very important thing for us to be able to tell them no. That is where it starts. Kids today are not used to the word no, right? In terms of the things that they want, in terms of whatever are the requirements, right? Parents today, fortunately, have the means, or somehow they manage it, and the child grows up without hearing the word no. And when suddenly the word is thrown at to the child, either by the school, by the friends, by the society, the jobs that they've applied for, it becomes a very serious issue. The pace, right, becomes extremely important. When the situation is not right, I need to look at what is the right pace in which I have to move. getting out of the comfort zone, managing frustration. This, again, is a very important skill. We all know that when the situation is adverse, when the situations are not to our need, to our requirement, to our liking, to our comfort levels, we get frustrated. So being self-aware is about noticing what is it that frustrates me, being aware that I am frustrated, right? And then, like the song there, right? How do I manage that frustration now? I am frustrated. I'm aware that I'm frustrated. So now what do I do? How do I get out of this? Becomes the next skill, which is very important. And of course, most important is perseverance, the never giving up attitude. And the last two, managing change. This COVID situation, right, has been, we always used to talk about this concept called VUCA world in corporate, right? A very, it had become a very favorite jargon of all leaders. Every speaker in the corporate world today, every speeches that you go into, every forums that you go into, they would talk about the VUCA world, where VUCA talks about the volatile, the uncertain, the ambiguous, right? Kind of environment. And the situation that we are in today is the perfect example of a VUCA world, right? It's completely volatile. You don't know what's going to happen next. There's so much of ambiguity, right? So I was talking to my sister who's a teacher. The amount of change management that had to happen. There are teachers who probably never even used a computer before, and they are expected to conduct training programs on, classes on Zoom. So they're suddenly becoming creative in terms of how do they prepare those PowerPoints. They've never opened a PowerPoint presentation in their life, and today they have to adapt to those change requirements if they have to survive, right? And that is what is very important. Let us understand that when we talk about the survival of the fittest is not in terms of the money they have, the health that they have, right? The intelligence that they have. Fittest is in terms of how well are they able to adapt to the situation around them, right? And most importantly, managing conflicts. There are going to be conflicts in certain situations. It can be conflicts because of value system. It can be conflicts because of power equations. It can be a conflict for a number of reasons, right? But if you go back to perseverance, if I'm able to manage my frustration, right, and I have the confidence in me, can I just go ahead and respond to the situations and keep moving ahead? So these are the skills that is required during adversity. And just to link it back, when we are talking about emotional intelligence, the first two parts, which is your self-awareness and self-management, is what it's all about, right? And how will I be able to manage an adverse situation? And as Zig Ziglar said, right, if I have to become really successful, one, am I aware of what is happening inside me? And do I know how to go ahead in the right way, being aware, knowing how to respond to the situation in the right way, right? Is what this entire webinar was about. And Dr. Achita, if there's time, I'm open to questions, please. Dr. Ajita? I'm not able to see the chat options. Okay, yeah. Dr. Ajita?
Hello, Gowri ma'am. This is Professor Asrar here.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I think she's facing some technical issues.
Oh, sir, sure, sir.
Yeah, so we have some couple of questions in the chat window. So first, I think
do we have the time for that?
Yeah, we can take some five minutes, ma'am.
Sure, I'm fine with it. Yeah.
So I think first question, yeah, I think it's from Gulshan sir itself. So I'll request others to go on mute, please. Yes. So he's asked that if low EQ is being assertive, demanding, egoistic, bossy, stubborn, fussy, not to please, whereas high EQ is to being warm, sociable, persuasive, detailed, patient. And we know many top heads having former attitude attributes. So does that mean that they have low EQ? Also, can one one request all the participants to go on mute, please?
Just try to see the chat 1 minute. Okay. If low EQ is being assertive, demanding, egoistic, bossy, stubborn, fussy, hard to please, whereas high EQ is to be. What I would say, Gulshan sir, here is that, as I mentioned in the beginning, right? High EQ. Can we mute all of them, sir? Asher, sir?
Yes, I'm trying.
So, yeah. So, Gulshan sir, I wouldn't say that there are any specific characteristics for all of that, right? Yes, being empathic, high empathy and all of that is very good. But what we'll have to look at is what is the situation in which the context of the entire thing, right? You've spoken about assertiveness. Is it low EQ? No. It is being aware of the situation and knowing that, yes, I have to put my foot down and be firm on certain things. Then yes, I can be assertive. But what we'll have to look at when you're high on EQ, you will know exactly what is the language that you're going to use, the words that you're going to use, the tone that you're going to use is what it is all about, right? Can people move from being low EQ to high EQ? Absolutely. And all this can happen from the self-awareness part. How aware am I? So if I go back after a situation, look at the entire situation that happened. Probably I was in a conflicting situation. There was real loud arguments that happened, fight that happened, and I come back and I retrospect and see, okay, what went wrong? What is it that I said that irritated him? Or what was that word that the individual used that made me angry, right? Once that kind of an awareness comes in me, I become aware of those red flag words, right? I mentioned in the beginning, what is it that angers me, irritates me, frustrates me, excites me? So once we're aware of all those things, the second that situation comes in, I know. So I know that if this particular word is used, right, I'm going to definitely flare up. So I'm already prepared and I'm able to look at how I'm going to respond to that instead of just impulsively reacting. So this is more in terms of looking within, looking at probably a few situations that we have been through that has not worked for us. And then looking at what could have been done better, right? In the beginning, probably these are going to be postmortems that we do after the situation. But once we become aware, then from the next time we face such a situation, we automatically know what we shouldn't be doing and what would be the right approach. So that is what I would say to that. Yes, we definitely can consciously work on improving our EQ skills, right? Consciously work on our relationships with people. Consciously put in that effort to understand what the other person is all about. Then that's automatically how your EQ goes up. Does it answer your question, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am. There is one more question from Mr. Ranganathan. So I wish emotions announced before hit me. Emotions come in spite of me. So I think it's not very clear, but what he's trying to ask is how can he, he wanted to control emotions, but it is coming as a natural one. So he's not able to control that. So how to control that? That is
Okay.
what the question.
Okay, this first point here is I wish emotions announced before it hit me. This again is a very important point of self-awareness. When we get tuned to our emotions, if you remember, I gave this example where I said that at times when we are talking to people on their self-awareness, their emotional self-awareness is what we call them, we are aware. There's something that we call as a bucket of emotions, right? So, for example, happiness doesn't start at that level. It starts from a very basic level where probably something that I see has pleased me, right? And I'm liking it, right? And then I'm happy about it. Then I feel excited about it. Then I feel exalted and euphoric about it. So every emotion has different levels in which it sort of, the intensity keeps increasing. There are some of us who are not in tune with ourselves, aligned to what we are feeling within. So in such situation, what happens is I'm suddenly caught unaware when the emotion hits me, right? I suddenly feel happy or I suddenly feel angry, but anger is not the first level of the emotion. It's not the first intensity. It starts basically from probably something that is unpleasant in that situation, right? And I disagree with something. So it starts there. So the second I'm not comfortable with the situation, I start getting aware of it. I don't think this is the right thing. I'm not sure that this discussion is going in the right direction. So if I'm continuously aware of all those things, then I wouldn't be taken up by surprise, right? So yes, emotions, it's emotions, right? It's always moving. It's always in motion. So it is a part of us. How I recognize it and how I harness it, how I use it the right way is what emotional intelligence is all about. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes. Thanks, ma'am. So the next question is, why most of the students do suicide and what kind of emotions is it?
Exactly, Astra. So the points that I mentioned when we were talking about managing adversity, we spoke about a very important point in terms of being able to manage or handle rejections. That basically comes from the challenges in the self-concept of the individual, right? That is why if you saw in all the 8 parameters that were given there, the first one was self-confidence. So what is it that I think of myself becomes very important, right? So for a person whose self-concept is very high, whose level of trust in himself, the belief in his self, in his abilities is high, then rejections do not cause much of an effect. They're still okay to take it. So when it becomes a combination of both of this, low self-esteem, low self-concept, right? Low trust in self. And what happens is when that person is rejected, it becomes a validation of something that this person is already thinking. You know, I knew that, you know, I'm not good. I knew that I'm useless. I know that I'm not fit for it. And see, that is exactly what they said. It becomes a validation of this. And that is what leads to the frustration and results in students committing suicide. So very important for us to understand, once we build our confidence, right, the trust, we trust more in ourselves. What comes from others can be a feedback that we either decide to take or not decide to take. Right? As Gandhiji said, right, nobody can insult me without my permission. So how is it that I'm going to react to respond to a particular rejection is possible only if the concept that the individual has in self is high. So that is what I would request students to first focus on, right? Today we talk about people saying my life, my wish, right? But it would be brilliant if that my life, my wish comes with an equal amount of confidence and self-concept. That will make them stronger. Then they'll be able to withstand any of these society pressures that happens, including rejection.
Yes, ma'am. That is well said. Actually, that's a need for our actually. The next is could EQ be developed without professional help, and at what point we can recognize he or she needs such help?
See, EQ is, as I said, all of us come with some amount of EQ, and then it becomes a conscious when we feel that some relationships are not working the way we want, or we are not able to achieve what we want. That is when we sit back and start thinking about ourselves and the kind of relationships that we have with people. And I think the first point, even if you go for any professional help, which is not required for EQ at all, right? You go to professional help when you are under depression, when you are under, when you feel that you need some kind of a counseling or some other kind of support. But EQ is already there, right? We all are born with a lot of intelligence out there. Instinctively, we are able to make out, you know, even a child is able to make out relationships instinctively. They know exactly how the other person is responding to them, and they decide whether they want to go to the person or not. So it's a very natural instinct. But for us, when we become more aware of it, right, then it becomes the next step. I become more aware of it, and then I look at what the situation is and what is required in that situation, and I start consciously developing it. So even if I go for outside help, nobody can put that into me unless I go for some kind of a hypnosis where things are pushed into it, right? Which is definitely not a requirement out here. It's more from me being aware and me deciding I want to do it, me forming a proper action plan and persevering in that direction, and ensuring that I have follow some amount of discipline in taking my actions to the conclusion, right? That's what is required.
Yes. Yeah. The next question is, it's quite, it's a general one. I think this will be useful for most of us. So the question is, high level stress disturb in life, how to tackle?
Yeah, again, I think that is exactly the what should I say, the objective of this entire webinar. So the 8 principles that we spoke about, having confidence in self, being able to, being self-directed, being able to handle rejection, manage change, right? So usually the stress is because of one of these reasons, right? There is a situation which I'm not familiar with. So there is something that's not happening the way I want it. So it is such situations that cause stress. We are talking from a distress perspective, right? So these are situations which lead us to a lot of distress and tension. So being aware of what about the situation I don't like and why is it that I'm not comfortable in it, and understand and deciding that, yes, if I'm not comfortable, how do I get out of my comfort level? and make the situation positive for me is a decision that we have to take. The same example that I gave, right, in terms of being forced 24/7 with the family. It again depends on the way I look at it. Do I look at it as an opportunity to build stronger relationships because I've been so busy running after my career and other responsibilities that I didn't have time to sit and talk to my people. And this is a fantastic way of bonding with them. If I can think of it in that way, then it becomes a different situation. And the same one, how do I just stay within? I'm not able to go out. I'm not able to talk to other people. So it all depends on the way in which we look at the situation. And being aware of, the stronger word here is to be more mindful of what our thoughts are, why certain things in that situation are making me feel uncomfortable, right? Is where the whole thing starts.
So just to add on that, ma'am, so if I have emotions, so I'm just asking, so should I express my emotions or should I control it? So what's your take on it?
It is very important to express emotions. There is the latest theories that have come in terms of neuroscience, right? If you saw that, the brain diagram that I showed you, the emotions are present in the limbic system, okay? And one theory that all of us have studied when we were in school and college, if you're taking biology, is blood flows to that region of the body which requires it the most, right? So for example, if I have to run, most of the blood is sent into my legs so that it gets the required oxygen to develop the energy and we are able to run. So when the emotions are held, the entire energy, the entire blood flow is more into the limbic system, right? And that is why we are not able to think clearly. For us to be able to take the right decision to solve problems or come out of the situation, we need analytical thinking. We need to be able to think strategically. We need to be able to think critically, right? And for which the blood flow needs to come to the front part of the brain, which is our prefrontal cortex or the executive center. So this is what happens. Just by holding back on emotions is not going to help me at all. And this is a very strong, what should I say, suggestion that we give even the leaders. We tell them, find some ways of bringing that emotion out, right? You might, there are some of our leaders in the organizations who have taken up marathon so they can run for hours together to bring out whatever the emotions are, the frustrations are outside. So it is important for all of us to release those emotions. But what is important is to look at how we are releasing it, right? How is it that we are letting go of those emotions? And it is important, it is critical for us to let go. Holding emotions is what will result in what we call as psychosomatic disorders.
But ma'am, if one more thing is, if I express that emotion, does it not mean that people will perceive like they are not able to, he or she is not able to balance their emotion?
Asha sir, it depends on how I am, sort of expressing it, right? One thing that's happened to us, for example, in our culture also, right? I remember most of the time, like when my granny used to be around, she didn't believe in girls being excited about things, talking loud, laughing loud, or being highly energetic about something. She would always say, no, girls are not supposed to behave like this. You need to be controlled. And of course, that standard thing, boys are not supposed to cry. So this is a cultural block that we have got as part of our growing up. It is important for us, but what is critical, Ashra sir, is to know how I'm letting go. I might not do it in that particular situation, but at a later stage, can I find some ways of bringing out those emotions? Like for example, if I'm completely frustrated with a person, I just take out a book, I write down a letter to the person, right? As if I'm talking to the person, then tear up the entire thing and flush it down the toilet. The emotion is brought out, right? The feeling is brought out. But I didn't scream at the person out there. Or I might call somebody out there and completely vent out my frustration. Right? That is what I'm talking about. Find ways in which you can release those emotions in the right way. When I say right, according to the context. So that is what is important. I mean, holding back emotions is definitely a no-no, a strong no.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, ma'am. So one last question. So it's like tell some tips to teachers for EI. So they're asked for some tips to all the teachers for emotional intelligence, how to control this emotional intelligence.
See, again, the teachers also from a professional perspective and as from an individual level, the same points that we are talking about works. But one thing that's even more important for teachers is what I would say is empathy, right? Being able to understand and connect with their students better. And that would bring down a lot more stress, because once they're able to understand why certain students behave the way they do. And this, I'm not talking from a corporate language perspective, I'm talking from the experience of having been a teacher myself, right? And I've seen brilliant changes when we have been able to understand the students. The need, right? The need for attention, the need for, mostly it is that attention seeking thing, or probably some stress that the child is, that the student is going through. So as teachers, how do we understand them, right? And being able to accept that certain students will be like that. It becomes a very frustrated thing for us at times, because we put in so much of effort. Just today there was this very nice forward on WhatsApp, where the teachers are sitting and making their notes and creating the PowerPoints, and the student, it's two images, and the student is with his legs crossed, sleeping comfortably on a bed and playing a video game, right? So the frustration is there for the amount of effort that we put in to create those lesson plans, to create those to prepare for the class in the first place. And it becomes very, very frustrating when we don't get the right kind of response from students. So it is one for us to understand and not react to those situations, not get angry, understand what is it that's going to make them focus a lot more, right? And that is what would be emotional intelligence, right? When we're talking about the social awareness part of it, do I understand the need of my students today? And believe me, especially with the next generation, we have the Gen Alpha also coming up. Things are getting very, very difficult. And we face the same kind of challenges in corporates today. They just don't care about the policies, about any of the compliance requirements in an organization. And it's become so difficult that today corporates are bending backwards to accommodate all these behaviors, right? We can't be very strict. Very big multinational companies that I've been part of, where dress code and all was very, very strict. They had to give in at the end of the day to jeans and shirts and t-shirts even during weekdays, right? So it's about accommodating, understanding the students there, and accommodating the changes, right? And probably to some extent relook at what is our expectations. Have we set the right expectations? And at the end of it, the confidence that I have done everything that it needs to be done. I'm confident about my knowledge on the subject. I've done my best. And what happens is for the students to decide. So this, I think, would become very critical from a teacher's perspective.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. So we have overshot by 10 minutes. So now I would request Dr. Ajita ma'am to summarize and give a word of mouth.
Yes, ma'am. Before that, Gulshan sir wants to thank you. Gulshan sir, is there?
Yeah.
Yes.
So can you hear me, Ajita? Everyone?
Yes, we can, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Gauri ma'am. Thank you so much for sparing out your precious time from tight schedule. A great session it was, put up in very, very simple words and in a lucid way. Topic is so apt, especially for current and upcoming generation, when we are blindly running for our targets and goals, where the targets and goals itself is not clearly defined, thereby leading to a lot of frustration. So high time to start using EQ critically. Thank you once again for joining us today. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure, sir. Thanks for the invite.
Thank, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. The session was very informative. It was a deep insight. You gave a very deep insight on emotions. I thank Gauri ma'am for providing a very mind-provoking session. You said very clearly about, you started very interactively with mentor.com, and you told very clearly about emotional intelligence, how managers should understand a team. And you told about the three states: survival state, emotional state, excessive state. It was very apt, and it was very clear for us how effective are we in maintaining the relationship. You explained very clearly about self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And told very clearly there is nothing of controlling the emotions, but it can only be regulated. And the relationship between adversity and emotional intelligence was explained enormously, very perfectly, very in a simple way. And you told how to be impulsive, the skills that are required to be adversity during your self-confidence, self-directed, everything was very finely explained, ma'am. It was able, we were able to understand it. That was the main thing about it. Very a complicated topic, able to understand in very simple English, very simple way you have explained it. Thank you so much, ma'am. The Q&A sessions about emotions, I think was very awesome. It was very awesome. And like I thank on behalf of ITM Business School Chennai, I thank you, ma'am. I thank you so much for accepting our invitation and making the day for us. I also thank all the participants for attending the webinar on emotional intelligence during adversity by Gowri Balasubramanyam, ma'am, Global Head, Learning and Development, Hinduja Tech. A special thanks to all the organizing team. I hope today you had a very valuable session, and I thank all the attendees who raised the questions. If anything remained unanswered, please you provide your email ID. We'll be answering you within 2 days. We hope you enjoyed the session. Kindly give your feedback in the chat window. Good luck to all of you. We truly appreciate your support. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.